starting in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Miriam Smith, and we're here today to talk about ending mass deportation and some of the things that are attached to what's driving that force, deporting and the immigration task force, what's really pulling and driving them. So we're thankful for you that are tuning in to us, and we want you to share this information with your friend. We want this information to become a household conversation in your homes to talk about the things that are happening in the deportation area today. So I would like for my guest to say something and then introduce themselves and then talk about what they want to talk about, and then we'll go back around.
You want to start?
Hi, I'm Audra Walton, joining these lovely folks here to speak to you about mass deportation solely, or mass incarceration?
Mass deportation
Mass
today.
deportation today. I unfortunately have to leave early. If you don't mind, I'd like to read quickly a list of companies that are using prison labor currently, and ask that you begin to boycott these companies, if you will, these companies. Don't purchase their products. So to begin with, AT&T has a call center actually in prison. AutoZone uses prison labor. Bank of America, Bayer Corporation, Berkshire Hathaway, Cargill, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Cargill, Caterpillar, Chevron, Costco Wholesale Corporation, John Deere, Golden Gate Capital, Eli Lilly and Company, ExxonMobil, GlaxoSmithKline, Glaxo Wellcome, Hoffman LaRoche, Mary Kay, McDonald's, and theirs kind of interesting because they have the prisoners make the uniforms that McDonald's workers wear, and they pay them somewhere between 25 cents to maybe $1.37 per hour to make those. Microsoft Corporation, Motorola, Nintendo, Pfizer Inc., Procter & Gamble Company, PepsiCo, Conagra Foods, Hillshire Brands Company, the Unilever Group, Shell, Royal Dutch Shell. I feel like I'm missing somebody here. Starbucks, State Farm, United Continental Holdings, United Parcel Services, Verizon Wireless, Walmart, and Wendy's all use prison labor from the United States. Let's see, Walmart, in fact, has a farm as well as Whole Foods, and Victoria's Secrets also uses prison labor to sew the women's garments and then sell them to you. Again, at pennies on the dollar for that labor. I think this is all about Walmart here. Let's see, Mortori is exclusive supplier to Walmart's 2,470 supercenters and neighborhood market stores. According to one woman who worked on the farm crews, they wake us up between 2:30 and 3 a.m. and kick us out of our housing until by 3:30 a.m. we get fed. At 4 a.m. our work supervisors show up between 5 and 8. Then it's an hour to 1.5 hour drive to the job site. And then we work 8 hours regardless of conditions. We work in the fields, hoeing weeds and thinning plants. Currently, we are forced to work in the blazing sun for 8 hours. We run out of water several times a day. We run out of sunscreen several times a day. They don't check medical backgrounds or ages before they pull women for these jobs. Many of us cannot do it. If we stop working and sit on the bus or even just take an unauthorized break, we get a major ticket which takes away our quote-unquote good time. And that is in a prison, workers that are laboring for Walmart. And I think I gotta say goodbye to you guys. Have a great show. Any questions for me before I do take off?
No.
No. All right. Nice meeting you.
Likewise. Take care.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, so my name is Mohammed. I've been involved in doing immigration stuff for probably 6 or 7 years now. So I'm undocumented myself. My family came here from Iran over 30 years ago. And I got involved in doing immigration stuff because it affected my own situation. And through that, over the years, I came across lots of other undocumented people, and a lot of my friends ended up being the ones that were facing deportation. And so through that work that I've been involved in, I've run across a lot of people who are facing a lot of injustices in the immigration detention center. And over probably maybe 400 different deportation cases and campaigns that I've worked on, you really get to understand that the way that these sort of systems operate is just by the fear that they put on people's shoulders. And they're able to get away with so much just because people are afraid. That list that you all just heard of all the companies that use sort of people labor in these systems is very interesting, and it's sad that it hasn't been challenged more. I know in 2014, for example, there was a lawsuit that was recently filed and recently received actually class certification. And it's a anti-slavery lawsuit of all things happening in 2017, and it's against GEO, which is an immigration prison, a private company that runs immigration prisons. And the plaintiffs in that lawsuit, which are all undocumented immigrants, were able to recently receive class certification against this prison that was paying them $1 a day and forcing them to work. And so that's a lawsuit that's actually making its way through the courts in Colorado that could have huge ramifications. Hopefully, we hope for the prison industrial complex, but also for the immigrants that have been sort of forced to be a part of those systems while they're also being separated from their families and everything else. And so I'm really excited to be here and to learn more myself as well about what's happening in our system.
Great, thank you, Mo. I just want to share that there's some information that is out, and you can get it on the internet, and it talks about that in 2016 in October that the GE, it talks about the CXW and the GEO, which they are the ones that's driving the force of labor from the immigrants, and it came out October, and there's a big spike in just a few months. Let's see, October to June, that's about seven or 8 months. It was 16% the market, and now it's at 28%. So it's now because of immigration, because of immigrants being detained and put into prisons. They go to detention centers and they send them out. They are slaves for labor, and it's impacting every state in this country. It's impacting it so much that they are able to make, I understand, $30 to $40 a day off of these people who probably get, in many states, $1 something a day. They certainly don't make much, and if they don't work, as Audra said earlier, they lose their free time. No, they actually get fined for various things, for certain behaviors. They get fined, and they leave jail a lot of times owing the prison. So this is happening in the jail system, and it's happening and it's moving vastly over to immigration detentions, where it's happening in detentions for immigration. So I have Mo here today, and I want to take advantage. You want to say Mo?
Mo is perfectly fine.
Yeah, I want to take advantage of the opportunity to talk about the things that he's been doing in this country and the things that he knows, especially with detention center, because it's like, after people have been put in detention centers, then what's going to happen to them next too? Those are some of the things that we want to talk about later, because once people come out, we have that young man that was here in our area that went into, he was about to be deported, and we were able to get him back, and we don't know all the ramifications on that, behind that, but People were able to protest in front of the jail on May the 2nd, and he was 19 years old and went in for a trespassing ticket. So that really made a lot of people nervous in the Salinas area, and they were detaining him for deportation. So that wasn't supposed to happen. So people were really upset about that. So I know I was talking to Mo the other day, and he was telling me about how there's this young lady in Santa Rosa that was detained for 2.5 months after she had been released from criminal jail. Then the detention center held her and would not release her. And I wanted him to talk and share that today, because I think that's very important information to get out. And people need to know how much that stuff messes with people's psyche. The young man that I was talking about at 19, he is really going through some psychological changes because of that, and it's really messing with him. People are human beings. They are real people. And we have to honor, respect, and care about people in our community. And if we don't start now, when will we start? So hoping that these conversations that we have about this will help others to realize that they should care and realize that they are human beings. Care and actually, be concerned that these are people that they need to do something about. They should not just, hear about it, but they should step up to the plate, say something about it if they're not already doing something. Okay? Mo, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as someone who's worked a lot in sort of the immigration world, what's sort of alarming for us as organizers in that world is that we would sometimes wish that the immigration detention system and the process was at least somewhat like the criminal process, because we really feel like in the immigration system with the judges and the detention centers and other things that our community doesn't even have the rights that people have in prisons, which for us is a very scary thing to say, because that entire system itself is just devastating. But that's where we really find ourselves. A lot of attorneys that I work with have difficulty even visiting with their clients inside detention centers, where they have to get permission from social workers or caseworkers in the detention centers to have permission as attorneys to visit their clients. And so there's lots of different issues that come about. But one of the cases that happened recently, there was a mother, her name is Yasmin. She's grown up here in Northern California since she was, I believe, like 9 or 10 years old. She has a family, she has 3 children, and sadly, Yasmin went through 20 years of relationships that entailed severe domestic violence, sexual violence, and all of this led her to start drinking. One of her abusive boyfriends at some point was forcing her to take drugs in order to have an abortion, in order to have a forced abortion. And so because of all of these other life factors, she became sort of an addict and an alcoholic. And so she found herself with 3 DUIs over the period of maybe 12 years from the time when she was about 16. And her final DUI in the criminal court, they understood that she needed help. And so what the criminal judge sentenced her to was rehabilitation under a new program that was started in the Santa Rosa area that was specifically for women that were victims of domestic violence and addicts themselves. And so the criminal court sort of understood that she needed help as her sentence. And while she was on probation, she finished her inpatient rehabilitation, which was, I believe, like a 4-month program or a 6-month program. In that sort of middle ground when she was going to start the outpatient treatment, immigration showed up at her probation, and they detained her, and they said that she had committed crimes in the U.S., and because of that, she was a danger to society, and she needed to be deported from this country. So she found herself in immigration detention at the Contra Costa Detention Center that's just out of San Francisco, and she was there for a total of 1 year and 2 months. She had 3 bond hearings with the immigration judge inside detention, and the immigration judge every time said that she was not deserving of a bond. Not even $100,000 bond, $1 million bond. She was just not deserving of a bond. So he flatly denied her bond. So the attorneys that were representing her out of Pangea Legal Services, they filed a habeas petition in the district court. And the district court issued a decision, which for me, as someone who's done immigration work, it was a pretty spectacular decision because it drew out all of the different ways in which the immigration judge made errors in his findings. And it sort of approached so in immigration, we have lots of people with criminal records that whenever they get in front of judges, it's sort of a double jeopardy. They've already been sentenced, they've already served their time under the criminal context, and then the immigration judges hold that against them again. And so in this instance, the district judge specifically said that you can't find someone to be dangerous and say that they're going to be a danger to society when the criminal court has already ruled on that decision and found the person not to be a danger to society. And so the district court ordered that the immigration judge hear the case again and have a follow-up bond hearing. And at that point, during that bond hearing is when Yasmin was released because, we feel that the immigration judge really had no other choice. Somebody was looking over his shoulder. And so he granted a $25,000 bond for her. And so after a year and 2 months in detention, she had a $25,000 bond. And thankfully, because her case was so public and there was so many people moving and doing things on her case, we received an anonymous donation from the community for the $25,000. And she was able to get released. This was on a Friday right before Mother's Day. So she was hoping to get home to her 3 kids. But as the criminal immigration system works, they found out because immigration picked her up in the middle of her probation, ironically enough, she still had a warrant pending because she never completed her sentence. So instead of releasing her, they transferred her back to another county jail from San Francisco. And so it took 3-4 more days until she got out. But it just shows how, deeply involved these systems are with one another and how neither is really helping anyone, nor are they really serving justice, sort of as they say. But thankfully, Yasmin is now home with her family. It was definitely a rough year and 2 months for her, and it definitely reflected in her kids. And if you want to hear more, I can tell you how she got picked up, which just goes back into the criminalization stuff.
Yeah,
It's
share
a crazy.
That's
Yeah.
that's important. Go ahead and share.
Yeah, no, so she got picked up. It was her sister's birthday, and she was with her boyfriend, and they were going, after the birthday party, she wanted to go out dancing. He wanted to go home. And so they stopped in Oakland. They parked in between 2 parallel parking spots, and he was going to get some tacos. And so she jumped in the driver's seat to move the car, and the police came by, and they stopped her. And so because she had a beer earlier, they told her that they weren't going to take her, but they gave her a ticket. And so that's how her sort of situation of entering the criminal justice system again began in the first place, which just touches on so many issues in terms of policing and other things
Yeah, so many small
that people
issues.
face, that sort of build up.
And then when there are innocent issues, and when you say she's had this trouble over a 12-year period and she's only had 3 DUIs, I mean, these are simple, small mistakes, especially if people are dealing with depression. It's like saying that Yasmin didn't have a right to deal with depression. And most people drink to self-soothe. So when you self-soothe, that deals with, the issues, or it sort of helps you get rid of the issue for the moment. It's only a momentary relief, but it's still, that temporary relief means a lot to that person, especially if they need help. So it's really sad that she would go through that and be released for rehabilitation, but yet she takes a month and a half to get to rehabilitation, and she still has to wait 3 more days for them to play games with her when all they had to do was notify them that she was in detention. And she would have just been released.
Yeah, they didn't let her complete her sentence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all they had to do. So those are the sad things that happen to people that go to detention. And then the one thing about it is she's waiting there. And we don't know how terrible that was while she's just sitting there waiting for over a year to see what can happen. And now she has to go through the process of mandatory showing up to court appearances and everything to deal with that process to help her, hopefully through all of this, she can win her case, her immigration case, and she's not deported because she's already suffered enough. and this is the thing about people in jails. When they're used for slaves to benefit companies, major companies, they're usually in the prisons. In the jails, they're held and they're not used in some areas the same as they are in others. But when they're used for jails to help promote or make profit for these prisons for profit, a lot of times their suffering does not matter. And of course, as Mo said, they do not deal with the same type of they don't deal with the same, how should I say that? They don't deal with the same, they don't even like to integrate the people in detention centers with the people in actual jail. And the people in actual jail get more privilege than the people in detention centers. Sometimes they're cramped up, family to families and people to people, and it's just unnecessary. And they're stacked up in there, and then they are mistreated. They don't get the proper medical care. If she was deemed to be able to go to rehabilitation, that's medical care. And she didn't get her medical care in almost a year and a half. And so those things need to be looked at. We need to be knocking at the doors and saying, what's going on here? How are we discriminating against people? You know, here she's released by criminal court, but yet we want to discriminate against her and tell her she's a criminal. You know, and it's the same with people that do some of the same things in jail today. When they go to jail for whatever felony or whatever misdemeanor, and I don't promote criminals, I'm just saying that when people go to jail for a criminal case that we deem criminal cases in America, a lot of times they go to jail and they have not even, they've done their time, you know, and then when it's time for them to be released, if they are undocumented, they get released to, if it's a felony, they get released to ICE. But, you know, they have not, they've done everything they needed to do in jail. They've served their time. But let somebody that's not undocumented, time for them to get released, they put them back into society. That's discrimination to say we won't put this person back into this society because they did this criminal offense, but we'll put this person back in society. That's discrimination.
So Yasmin, when she was in it was a jail, it was a county run by the sheriff in Contra Costa. But one of the times I spoke with her, it was just ironic because she said that in that same time that she was there, she had people that she was jailed with that were not undocumented. She said there was a woman there for vehicular manslaughter who came, served a 7-month sentence. Yasmin was there when she arrived throughout the sentence. After 7 months, she was released to go home to her family. There was other people that she was detained with that were, again, not undocumented, that were there for DUIs, served a sentence. They were released to go home to their families. And here, Yasmin, a year and 2 months without even a single sentence.
Or nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Just purely for immigration because the county is running low on money and they need to raise money and they need immigration beds. And so that's how a lot of counties that are struggling around the country, they get income is from immigrants filling the beds every single day.
Yeah. And it's a ripoff in the state of California. We get the most. I mean, I understand it's moving from $60,000 a year to $70-something thousand a year per inmate. So they're making money for filling the beds. That is a profit, and it's raising, and people are like cashing in on that stuff. But it's really sad though that she could watch people come and go, and she could still talk about that. We've had ICE raids in King City. We've had ICE raids in.
Wait, there's ICE raids that happen in California?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought this was a sanctuary state.
I know. Trying to get there. We're trying to get there, and you know what? We hope it becomes a sanctuary state.
Yeah.
This coming. It's already passed the House. It's just waiting on the governor to sign it. Yeah, and I think he's going to sign it. But we will be a sanctuary state. But you know, we have to protect each other. You know, we have to become a sanctuary community. That's what I'm working on with a group of people, is becoming a sanctuary community. Because if we don't teach people how to protect each other and how to get to know each other and not be scared of one another, then we're not going to be able to help keep our community safe. And I think that that's a conversation that needs to be talked about among the people that care, is to talk about keeping each other safe and talk about how do we do that. you know. And one of the things I'll mention, and I'll go back to what's happening in South County is we'll do it through our training. We're having a rapid response training on June the 24th, and on June the 24th, we're going to be teaching people how to keep people safe. So the rapid responders will be people that can be dispatched out to legally observe what's going on with ICE. And that's June the 24th at Ocean View Baptist Church. It's going to be all in Spanish, this training, and it's going to be from 6 to 9 p.m. So ICE will know that we're in this area, we're in this county, and people will show up and observe so we could better protect and get information to the people that are possibly detained or being threatened to be detained. But right now we're having an issue in Monterey County, and as I was saying, King City and Soledad, ICE is out there, and they made some arrests earlier this week, and then also, and I say that because I would like for people to look back and go research what's happening to those people. Try to follow them, where they're going and what they're doing. See where, so that when they know people are watching out for people that are being detained, then they will treat them better and they'll be more careful. Because a lot of things that a lot of times when ICE show up, they pose as the police for the city, and they also will do, harm or abuse or different things to the people. But if people show up, they're less likely to do that. And they picked up someone in Greenfield. So ICE is on the rampage near us. And so we want to be able to protect our community members. We want to be able to look out for our community members. And we want to be able to have all eyes on ICE. So we want to know where ICE is at all times. And community members, you're the ones that's going to help us do that, is to know wherever ICE is, we'll have people there so that we know our people are protected and they're safe. We know that our people know that there's somebody there to support them, somebody there that will be there for them through that process. So it's going to be really important to show up to trainings, know your rights training, and also to show up to rapid responder training. So you'll know how to observe and how to document and how to get the information to a legal defense team. And there's some legal defense teams around here. There's some up in the Bay Area. Mo is working with, who are you working with, Mo? Pandia, right? Pandia, they're a legal defense team, and they're willing to help undocumented immigrants, right? With any kind of cases that has got them detained, immigration cases, I should say. So what we want to do is we want to make sure people are getting prepared, people are showing up to training, and people are being trained to be able to know what to do next. Some people have instincts. They know what to do, and we're asking those people that have natural instincts to send out, take pictures of ICE, remember that, and notify us where ICE is. We want to know exactly where ICE is at all times, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, all of this is very important in the sense that, the first couple days that an undocumented person is detained is oftentimes the most important. And if somebody's going to be detained, it's good for them to know that the community is there standing with them. And with sort of this project and the rapid response project that's happening in this area, you could potentially be standing right there outside the door as someone in your community is being picked up, and therefore they will know that they aren't in this alone. Immigration, from the stories that we've heard, oftentimes will try and force people within those first couple days to sign their own deportation and to not go through the court process. They'll lie to them, they'll throw over chairs, they'll knock over tables, they'll threaten to go after their kids, they'll do everything they can to try and get that person to sign over their own deportation. And so in my experience, anytime I've worked with attorneys or even community-led efforts to stop somebody's deportation, there's almost always a way to help people in their process with either the hope that they can win their case now or that we can have a more friendly administration in charge that will create sort of avenues for people to fix their status. Individually speaking, myself and a lot of the work I've been involved in has sort of tailored around this notion that just deportation as a concept should not exist in this country, and detention centers should not exist in this country, period. There's no in between, there's no circumstance where a detention center should exist.
Right.
What I think a lot of people do not understand is that immigration, the whole process of immigration, is a administrative matter. It's akin to going to traffic court and the judge telling you, oh, you're gonna have to wait because you were really swerving in and out of those lanes, you're a danger to society, you're gonna have to wait till we process your case. I think there's even stories that pop up a lot of people that go, like domestic violence victims or others, sometimes when they go testify and the judge orders for them to be held in jail because they may not show up again to be a witness. And people are always outraged. That's what happens every single day in immigration detention. 40,000 immigrants detained a day that are essentially being held for administrative purposes. And further on that note, in our country here in the United States, immigration detention and the concept of deportation is really used as a sort of attrition model of, you know, making life as miserable as possible for a subset of the population to send a message to the rest of the population. Don't come to the US to seek protection for asylum. Don't report any crimes. And as an immigrant, you're less than human. And that's really what we're challenging and why we ask people to come out to these community efforts and these rapid response, because I don't believe in that, and we hope that other people don't believe in that as well. But the only time that immigration or sort of our police systems can really move forward on these fronts is whenever they know there's like a crack in our armor as a community. And one other thing I would say is, for me, what's very troubling is anytime I've worked on a campaign with an immigrant who has like a DUI or any sort of criminal conviction, it's very rare that we get a lot of support from the community in the first place. There's a lot of people that say, oh, they committed a crime, they should have known better. So it's just, people need to be very careful in understanding sort of the holistic nature of why people commit crimes, and knowing that as a community we have to stand behind everyone. Yasmin's children did not deserve her. It wasn't right for them to suffer in the way that they did with her being in detention for 1 year and 2 months. And as a community, if more people had stepped up and said that even if she has a DUI, we don't think she should be deported, we wouldn't have had people like Nancy Pelosi and other representatives, Mike Thompson from Santa Rosa, who pretty much blatantly admitted that they agree that she's a danger to society. And so there's sort of a bigger problem that exists and a bigger shift, which is why we need the community to really come out to these rapid response trainings and be involved in this work to send the message to immigration that we will no longer stand for you criminalizing our community and saying that certain people deserve to be deported. And in order to get to that sort of utopia where detention doesn't exist, people need to be engaged now. It's always crazy to me how many people in the community themselves are, I don't want to say against, but they're beyond against. They draw the line. If you have so much as a misdemeanor, you've made immigrants look bad, you deserve to be deported. And that sort of self-hatred is what drives the space for policies to exist,
Well,
in my view, yeah.
Well, I agree with you, Mo, on that. I think that people should step up to the plate way more than what they are. People should speak out against discrimination, because that's what it is. Whenever I do a crime and I have documents and someone else does a crime and they don't have documents, they're worse a criminal. And they're trying to make the fact that you don't have a document be a criminal. So I agree that, if more people would stand up, the lady got out, so she would have got out sooner. And why do people have to suffer and children suffer? Why do children have to suffer? Children need their parents. And that's why it's so important to not break up homes, not break up families. I really think that we need to start somewhere. And a good start could possibly be making sure that it's just hands off of families, hands off of parents that have children in this state, whether they're here with papers or not, hands off. Because it could be more harmful and more damaging to have children destroyed because the system wants to play games with somebody's life, or because we think it's okay to discriminate. Oh, they got it. They got a good idea. Yeah, she did do a crime. But so is everybody else. There's hundreds of people doing that same thing. So, are you going to discriminate? Are you going to treat people like a human being? So, I totally agree that we should all, I think we should not be deporting people. I think that people should be able to come in and out personally, and I agree with him on that. So, it's really important that we talk about this among our families, in our houses, out in open, that we have these conversations so that people will be totally aware that people are human beings. They have feelings, they hurt. Can you imagine, just because somebody don't speak the same language as you, or they're not born in the same city, town, or the same place as you, does not mean they're not a human being. They don't have feelings, they don't hurt. Can you imagine watching people come and go and you being held back because somebody's discriminating against you? That's really challenging. Mentally, I couldn't understand. I can't understand that. I can't understand how somebody come in with worse a crime than me and can leave, and I'm in a detention center and I can't come and go. So it's really important that people are making other people aware, and that people understand. And right now in Monterey County, there's people being detained. I understand there's been 4 already earlier this week, now another one yesterday, and now another one today. As far as I know, it's about 6 people. I will get in, we are connected, and we will get in, I'll get in touch when we're done with this show and find out how many other people and what's going on. But I think the community should rise up and speak up against it. The community is, the people matter, the people are important. Those are the people that's gonna move other people. And if you speak up and say something, you might feel it in your heart, but let it come out of your mouth. Let it speak. Let it talk for you. Do not just hold it in your head and in your heart and ponder on it. Speak about it. Do something about it. Find out. Make phone calls. Bombard them with phone calls. And join protests. But people stand up and come against it. They will eventually get the message, and they will stop. Or the people will let me tell you this, the people can shut it down. We could just shut everything down. We don't have to let the operation keep going. We could just say, okay, we're tired of this. These are human beings. These are people with a purpose just like us, and we're not going to let you treat them like this. We're not going to stand for it. And if we decide to do that and we just stop, then I guarantee you the message will be heard. And they will have to do something. If we're not moving as the people that have the power, then the system's not moving. We got to stop shopping at these places that are gaining profits from people for slave labor, for true slave labor. You're in jail and you'll get a fine, you get mistreated, and the conditions are horrible. Monterey County Jail, they're horrible. Monterey County Jail just came up on 2 years ago, in July, not last year, but the year before, I believe, they came down on 18 counts in the Monterey County Jail on prison welfare, and the different counts that came down against them with the grand jury of how they were doing the prisoners. So when you arrest somebody, they go to Monterey County Jail, or they go straight to a detention center. But we have to understand that it affects more than just that person. It really affects you, the people in the community. It affects you, because when you're in this community and somebody's arrested for some petty Annie stuff, and you hear about it, whether you speak up or not, it's affecting you, because you're like, man, that didn't have to happen like that. That should not have happened like that. So why not speak up? Why not stand up? Why not say something? And don't say it tomorrow. Let's say it today so we can do something about it. Because we can shut everything down. We can stop the operation ourselves. Am I all right?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely true. And I think the thing that people should be aware is that, I mean, when you don't step up, you are making a statement by not doing anything. So, for example, in 2014, and this was under the Obama administration, they started family detention centers where they detain mothers and children migrants that are coming to the U.S. to seek protection. And so right now in Pennsylvania, there's a detention center where you have a group of roughly maybe 20 mothers with children that have been jailed for over 2 years inside an immigration detention center with their kids. And so you have kids that have had 2 birthdays inside of an immigration detention center, even though they have legitimate cases for asylum, because the government wants to make an example out of them. And so those are things that should be very worrisome, those trends, because everything that the Obama administration sort of set in place, the Trump administration is just sort of, it's on steroids. And so it's not going to really be long before there's more immigration detention centers for families, and it could be, people that they pick up here where, as a community, we're saying they shouldn't separate families, and they'll respond to us and say, okay, we'll put the whole family in detention. And so the only way that this becomes possible is by people not stepping up to the plate and doing something about it now, because everyone knows someone who's undocumented, and this will be at your doorstep. There was one, I don't know if you saw after the elections, there was a town in Indiana where there was a woman who voted for Trump and her husband's undocumented.
And he got sent, yeah.
And it got
I
picked
heard
up,
about
and
that.
it was, to me, it was interesting in that the whole town rallied against this person of like, yeah, there's dangerous illegals, but not this one, we know him. And sadly as it is, that's how people change their minds. So if people like dig around, they have someone in their life that's undocumented, and that person would really appreciate it if you were active and really working
Oh, yeah, they definitely
to do these things without waiting for them to be in jeopardy for you to realize, oh man, I should have been doing
Should've been
something this
doing
whole
something
time.
all along, yeah. Well, there's a case also just a couple of months back, which is after the new administration, where a lady in Texas, did you hear about the lady in Texas? Her husband, she voted for Trump as well.
Okay.
And her husband was picked up.
Okay.
And this lady in Texas thought the same thing. Isn't that crazy how, can you imagine some of the people that are voting for this man and they have undocumented relatives or some sort of relationship or connection? That's crazy.
I think the normal person doesn't understand how embedded the immigration system is in other systems.
Yeah.
And that, so for example, like in immigration, even I believe under the Trust Act, if you have a previous, maybe not under the Trust Act, but in a lot of states, if you have a previous deportation from years ago, you're considered a priority. So even if you get pulled over for no license, because you have a previous deportation order, you're still considered a priority, so you're still
That's
picked
right.
up. And so a lot of these raids that we're hearing in this local area are people that have lived here in the community for 20 years, and they have a deportation order from when they first came to the U.S. 15 years ago. And that's what immigration is going after. Because in immigration's terminology, they call it a fugitive, people that have outstanding deportation orders. So they purposefully use these words that raise red flags in people's minds of, oh no, that person's a fugitive. They call it fugitive operations when they go pick up people.
And they're trying to make it
Yeah.
criminal. They're
Exactly.
trying to say just being undocumented is criminal. You know better before you came here. No, people come here under all kinds of conditions and reasons. They come here for asylum. They come here to flee for their lives. Danger.
Or just
and
to be
then
able to
better
feed their
life.
families.
Yeah,
Yeah.
better life. And resources, because we should not want to see people suffer. So it shouldn't matter. But that doesn't make them a criminal because they came here undocumented. And we need to make sure that we're letting people know that. I don't care how much the government want to feed us that hogwash. If we let the government feed us that and say they're a criminal because they're undocumented, then we'll let them feed us back to, next thing you know, if we let them discriminate against the Latinx community, then they'll be discriminating against the Black community and back again to the Muslim as they are. If we continue this cycle that the government wants to create, then we are not taking power. We're not putting people in office that we believe we can trust and care about, supporting our values. We need to make sure that we're putting people in office that care about other people. So we have that power as people. We have that power. So we want to make sure that we use our people power and use it to the fullest effect, or there's just going to have to be, where people are just going to have to take over, the government, and it's going to be at a point where the government is going to have to bow down to the people because, we can't just like, oh, well, it's not so bad. Well, let's wait and see. If you know it was a fire, why are you going to wait for the fire to burn up your house before you do anything about it? That man in our office right now is like fire. You don't vote them in and give them a chance. You don't give fire a chance to run rapid throughout the country. It's going to destroy. And that's what we have to understand is we have to understand we cannot allow anything we know that's hot and that is on fire to catch anybody else and cause any other damage. We have to do something now as a people. And we can, one thing I say, we can shut it down right here at this level, at the ground level, we can shut it down and not let it affect our families, our friends, and people we care about in our community. We need to, people need to know that. It's so important. Am I not right?
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. And the other reason people should get involved is there's a lot of other states where things are much worse than they are here in California. And
Sure.
since you all have sort of the privilege of having more resources and access to more community and just lots of different things that help, the more successes you all are able to get and more victories you're able to get, that sort of creates something that other people in other communities can replicate.
Right.
And so you all can really provide the vision that other people can emulate in their own communities and start getting that work happening. Because a lot of us need to see something before we have that light bulb go off.
Yeah.
And hopefully this is acting as a light bulb for anyone listening
Yes,
or watching.
yes, right.
Of they need to get active, but there's so much more potential for people around the country to sort of replicate what they see happening here. And so, yeah, people just have to get active.
People have to get active. It's really past the point of getting active. And you know what? If ICE is in our back door, which ICE is in our back door, we need to be out there looking out for our neighbors. And we need to train neighbors to train other neighbors to look out, and family members to train other family members to look out. So that if ICE shows up, ICE will know we're watching them and they won't mistreat and abuse. Because I've also learned that when ICE is showing up on the scene, if there's no one else around, they're really abusive to the people. I don't see any reason why any family member should be face down on the ground, including their kids. We had that happen about 3 months ago. And I think that we should be treated like people. People should be treated like people. And there's no kids that should be face down on the ground in concrete. So if we're out there, ICE is going to treat people a little bit more dignified, I'm hoping. And I'm learning that in some cases they do. There are some states, though, that can care less. There's some states that get away with practically murder, and so they can care less how they treat the people. But like Mo said, California has a lot more leverage and leeway and could do a lot more resources that can do a lot more. But also California uses the prison industry system a lot more than California and Texas than other states. And so it's important to know that we need to work from that prison industry system and say, you're not going to make money off of the immigrants. You're not going to make money off of the prisoners. And if they're doing a crime, they serve their time, they come out, and let's rehabilitate. Get them started back with their life and moving forward. We are not here to make money off of these people. We are not here to run an underground slave market. That's not what we're doing, and that's what the prison industry system is doing. It's an underground slave market for people. They're using people, and they're making way more money. And then you're using the products of some of the companies that we called off here, that Aja called off here. You're using their products, and you're helping them get richer and richer, and they're not even paying for it. They're not even paying for the labor. Walmart pays welfare wages. People have to still be on food stamps and Medi-Cal when they work for Walmart. And Walmart they're running two ends against the middle. They're beating it by two ends. They're beating it by the people they pay to sell their product. They're beating it by the people that they pay, or the prison industry system that they pay to make and create products. So what we want to do is we want to stop empowering stocks in the. We got to be careful about that.
I think a year ago or so, there was a statistic that I was out. I think 1/4 of our current prison population right now is immigrants that are, because in the U.S. it's a felony if you are deported and you re-enter the U.S. And so there's a lot of people that.
It's a felony?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that get caught their second time, and they're transferred. It's called Operation Streamline. It's a court. It's called Streamline, and there's I think 7 of them in the U.S. along the border, and I think there is one in California south. But if you ever want to sort of see the factory process of the prison pipeline, you should go sit in on one of those hearings. I think it happens every day at 1 o'clock, at least in Arizona. That's when it is. But you pretty much go there. There's a judge, and there's 7 to 12 immigrants that they line up in a jumpsuit, all chained together, and the judge will go one by one and tell them, this is what your sentence is going to be. So it's just like a factory process. One judge that hears 7 to 12 cases at one time, with public defenders that are there that don't spend more than 2 minutes with the people. I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, there was a ordinance that was passed, at least in Arizona, saying that the public defenders, their salary was going to be capped at $250,000 a year, as opposed to upwards of $1 million they were each getting for just processing these cases. And then people go to prison. So you hear them get sentenced 13 months, 12 months, 190 days, and they all get sent to prison just for attempting to come to the U.S. to reunify with family, to work, to feed their family, anything. So I think the statistic is 1/4 of our current prison population in the U.S. is immigrants who are there simply for trying to come to the U.S., not for committing any crime. And so there's a lot of scary things happening if people were just to open their eyes.
Trying to come to the U.S. Now that's crazy.
Yeah. In the last year or two as well, what they've been doing is, let's say somebody gets pulled over here for no license or whatever. If they find out that that person has a previous reentry, the Department of Justice has been charging people domestically in the U.S. with felony reentry 10 years after the fact. So this has been happening in Rhode Island. There was a couple of cases in Washington State, just all over these places that you assume are liberal beacons, where people are still being charged with felony reentry, being sent to prison, from prison to immigration detention, and then deported. And the same companies own the prisons that own the immigration detention centers, and they also oftentimes own the case management services that are supposed to help people when they're released with their support work. It's just it's very open and obvious. It should not be existing. This is not how it should be operating.
Such a conflict.
It's such a conflict, very glaring, but it only exists because people don't care
Don't
to
speak up.
Yep.
People don't know. That's why we're having this conversation.
Yep.
People, if you don't know, you're not going to speak up. So we're having this conversation, so you can't say you don't know today, because we gave you some information to go research. We gave you some information to go study. Because it is a shame that GEO is one of the private prison companies, and they own the company that's doing support here in Monterey County.
Oh, they do. They're here locally.
They're here locally in Monterey County, and we've been fighting that for a couple of years, and we were able to get the Board of Supervisors to agree to not having another full-blown contract with them again. And, because they were getting almost $2 million, and every 2 years or every year, and they were only producing 25 people. So they own the programs that come after jail, but people were going back. You'd have 300 come through their program, but only 25 would graduate. The rest were going back. So we want to cut back recidivism, and we want to cut back people going back and forth to jail, and people getting picked up 10 to 20 years later, 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, after they've been living a pretty good life. And they've done life, proved their life, and then they get picked up. And we want punishment so bad, revenge so bad, that we'll throw them in the system just to make some money. All this stuff is just an opportunity to bring in extra income for the prison industry system. They even had a point where you had to guarantee so many beds for them to come in. Why do we need to keep building detention centers? Why do we need to keep building jails? What we need to do is build up some hope and build up some heart and build up the ideal of education and the ideal of rehabilitation and the ideal of working with people and not throwing them in a cage somewhere and forgetting about them, but work with them, put them in something else. That somebody could be making a mistake, and the same mistake that we criminalize because they're poor, because they don't have any other options, no other opportunities. But if we work with them, and we have other options and opportunities, it can help. I want to say that I'm proud of a program that's happening, and it has nothing to do with immigration, but I'm thinking about working with people. A program that's happening on Fort Ord, and they take these kids on 2 field trips a week. And the Boys and Girls Club used to take them on 1 a week, but now they take them on these boring field trips. Sorry to say, boring field trips. But this group, and I forget, Porter Youth Center, they take them on 2 field trips a week. And today, my kids are a part of it, and they got to go to Great America. When we do things like that and value kids, not just my kids, but other people's kids too, but we value the kids, it'll be less likely that they'll end up in trouble later when we invest in the kids. So we need to take time out. People need to take time out and invest in programs and invest in kids. I know people stop spending money on investing in kids, but if we start now investing in kids, it doesn't matter if the kids are documented or undocumented, their parents are documented or undocumented. If we invest in kids, that is so important. I'm around in the community sharing and working with children all the time. That's how I started working in the community so much, is working with children. When my 6th child was 2 years old, I decided I wanted to make a difference in I've been wanting to make a difference in other kids' life, but I had 6 kids. So when she turned 2, I decided I want to make a difference in other people's lives. So I started working with children and making sure that children know they are important, so we can stop the children from heading to prison or to jail. Right now, parents are scared for their kids to go to schools. They're still scared for their kids. They're scared to come out and shop. They're scared to go to the doctors because they don't want to be deported. And now with the scare we have in Monterey County, it's making it even worse. It's making it where people really don't feel safe. And so I want to tell people, let's keep acting normal and let's get out to these trainings. And we have, churches are sanctuaries. And this is a training on June the 24th. And it's a rapid response training. It'll share about knowing your rights a little bit and how to respond and how to get information to help protect people in your community, or to help people in your community understand what to do, how to get information and transfer that information to a legal defense team. We have a legal defense team. There's lists of legal defense people that can help people that may be detained. This information will come out and it'll help people understand what to do. It'll help us learn how to video when we see ICE in the area, how to get information to a certain point, how to take a picture, send it up. I'm saying now, take a picture, post it up on the internet if you see ICE, and give us the address. That's one main important, so the community will be aware, so that we can have all eyes on ICE. But we want to learn how to be responders, and we'll do that through trial and error, and we'll continue to do that and continue to do that until every single person that wants to be trained in the Monterey County is trained. So be sure to show up to Ocean View Baptist Church on the 24th of June, and it'll be from 6 to 9. That's at 1200 Amador Street. 1200 Amador Street, and that's in Seaside, California. And we'll be training people about, giving people information about how to respond to ICE when ICE shows up in the community, because parents are really scared, and families are scared. Individuals that don't have children are scared. And we want people to feel free to walk around and be normal and not feel affected by this, because and not to run, because we want people to know that ICE unless they have a picture of you, and they have very few pictures of people walking around. They don't really know who you are in a crowd or walking around in the area, but you can help them become suspicious. So if you come to these trainings, you can learn how to not help ICE be suspicious of you. You can learn how to be just normal, moving and flowing in the community, and know that you're just like anybody else. You're an individual that should be respected and should be loved and treated with dignity. And that's what we want to make sure, is that the dignity stays intact for the people when ICE does show up, and that the people are not disrespected. That's so important to me, and I want to get out that we need to connect in our community with love and respect. Mo, did you want to talk about your thing that you're going to be having afterwards, or do you want to talk about what the next step is that you think that we should know as rapid responders?
Yeah, I mean, I think the next step for, or if there's people that have sort of already been involved in like the rapid response trainings, I think you mentioned there was like been 4 or 5 of these sort of knock on the door home stops, home raids. I think the reality that a lot of people also maybe miss is that California has a lot of immigration detention centers and a lot of county facilities that have immigrants that are detained in them. And so one process that can exist for anyone really is getting in touch with families of loved ones that are currently detained in detention centers and finding a way to actually get them out of the detention centers.
Oh, that's a good one.
And that really sends a very powerful message to immigration as well, that, I mean, you know, if we can empty out the detention centers, then they
Yeah.
really have no fear to hold over anybody in the community.
be
And
super.
so if anyone has free time and they've already been trained up, then we should start brainstorming on ways to find people that have family members in detention and try
like
to
that.
come up with ideas to get them out. Yeah.
I like that, and I hope people like that, because that's our next step. We're going to work on those issues, because if we, you know, we have, as people, we have the power. We have the power to make sure that our people that we know, love, and respect are treated right. And so I think that if we do find people in these detention centers, have you been looking at any point? Have you found any groups, or have you kind of put it into operation any at all with finding people in detention centers? I know you've been looking at some.
Yeah, so so I've been working with some groups in San Francisco in terms of having a hotline or finding a way to talk with people inside detention centers. So it's very possible to do. It just requires a little bit of support in terms of volunteers for people to call and those sorts of things. But there's a lot of work to be done, and the first step for people really is to come out to the training, and we can sort of talk
Get
from there,
from there.
move forward. Yeah.
Okay, so we want to make sure to come out to the training. We're shutting it down, and we thank you for tuning in, and we thank you all for being there for us. I'm Miriam Smith with Community for Unity.
Thanks so much for having me.
Mhm.